What's up you guys, I'm Dan, this is Frugal Not Cheap, and today we'll be talking about the Diem cryptocurrency. Now if you don't know, a while back I put out a video about Bitcoin, which is the most commonly known cryptocurrency. Since that time, Bitcoin's actually appreciated quite a bit, but there continue to be some warnings from people out there that there could be some kind of a bubble brewing. Anyway, if you've watched the video, then you'll know my personal feelings about it. If you haven't, then I suggest you check it out. Basically, I tried to make the argument that as cool as the technology behind Bitcoin is, and as interesting as it is as a development, because it's just so darn volatile and not really used at all in order to transact goods and services, that I really don't see it as anything that could replace money anytime soon, right? The volatility is just too much. In fact, I love Tesla, and they always do kind of interesting things. And one of the things that they've done is to recently allow people to buy a Tesla using Bitcoin. But just to highlight how ridiculous the volatility is, you have a very short window from the time it gives you a price in Bitcoin to the time that you can actually make the purchase, because it's so volatile that it can change within just minutes. And they don't want to take that kind of a price risk against the dollar, right? And I don't blame them. So yeah, I don't really see a good use case for Bitcoin as money. I've read some places where they make an argument that it could be used for interbank lending because the transactions costs are lower. But again, because you have this major volatility problem where all the reserves are denominated in dollars, but they're going to be transferring funds overnight using, or on the back end using Bitcoin, then you still have this major volatility problem. So I just don't see how that could work at all. There are other cryptocurrencies that have maybe less volatility, stable coins and that kind of thing, and they have in some ways some better technology for sort of a mass scale type of use case as currency. However, it's still not clear to me why anyone would be preferable over the other. So, Bitcoin's kind of the first and most well-known, and they have a huge first mover advantage. And so there's over $1 trillion in that space already. Next up, you have Ethereum, which arguably has some better tech in other ways. But still, it's not clear to me why either of these two would be the one. Certainly Bitcoin, again, doesn't look like it could work very well for me. So it could be Dogecoin, I don't know. Elon Musk continues to put out some fun tweets that kind of keep the Dogecoin in people's consciousness. And I guess the technology backing that is a little bit more amenable to being used as currency. But then again, who knows, right? Who knows? Why would it be one of these cryptocurrencies? And at the same time, central banks are going to be fighting very hard to make sure that these things don't take off, because of course they'll want to be able to continue to enact monetary policy by being able to adjust the size of the money supply, the monetary base. And you can't do that when everyone's using some currency that you don't have any control over, right? So kind of long-winded way of saying that, I don't see anything that's out there right now that really has a whole lot of legs in terms of something that we use in our daily lives, except I'm excited that Facebook is making another stab at launching their cryptocurrency. It was formerly called Libra. Again, because they didn't think through what regulators and central banks would think on that one. They got a whole lot of pushback. And also, at the time, their PR was really bad because of Cambridge Analytica and that kind of thing. So now they're trying again. It's rebranded as Diem, D-I-E-M, like a day, right? And so they're going to be launching it sometime this year, it looks like. And I was able to join a pre-launch discussion back in February. So, I only put out one video a week, so this has been kind of brewing in the back of my mind. And actually, I tried to film a video already on this topic, and I was watching the presentation and trying to do all this fancy stuff, but it didn't work out too well. Anyway, I'm excited for it. They've addressed a lot of the concerns that were an issue before. But before I get into that, let's kind of touch on the PR thing real quick. I went on kind of a rant the original time that I filmed this, but I just wanted to kind of make a few of those points a little bit more succinctly. So first off, Cambridge Analytica, that kind of thing, not cool at all. Absolutely on board with that. But there are some other concerns that are levied against Facebook that I just don't understand. So there's this privacy concern because, your web browser uses cookies, and then there are targeted ads in Facebook. I don't see the concern there. That is the revenue model. We're the product, and the advertising agencies and the companies that want to advertise, they're the actual customers, right? And that's understood. That's why it's free. And if we don't like it, we don't have to use it. Not a big deal. But again, it's not like there's some, creepy individual who's tracking all the things that we're doing, right? It's a computer algorithm. It's completely blind, really. Essentially, there's so many of us, billions of users, that, yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's anonymous, and who cares, to me, anyway. Then there's the concern about all the misinformation that gets promulgated on the Facebook platform. That one I share, but again, there's personal responsibility. Like, the people that are sharing this stuff are the bad actors, right? It's not the platform. And trying to police all that stuff across trillions of posts all the time would be just completely infeasible. Until they get AI working. So I know they're trying to get some AI working that could hopefully work to catch more of that stuff and kind of get some of the really egregious stuff out of there. And then you can also do your part, of course, by reporting things that shouldn't be on there. So yeah, I don't know, that's my little rant about it. I think it's still, the Cambridge Analytica stuff, not cool, but other concerns, not such a big deal, and we should also take some personal responsibility. And, they're useful platforms, right? That's why Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram have such a large user base. And that giant user base of billions of users, let's say if you have the intersection of Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook users, you have, I don't know, somewhere around the order of 2.5 to 3 billion active users, which is crazy, right? Then that's why any cryptocurrency that's launched by these guys has a very large target audience and could very quickly be put into practical use for transfers between friends, and then also for the purchase of goods and services. So let's say we only have, a 10% take rate, and we've got 2.5 billion active users, then we're still talking about 250 million people that could be using this thing. And then, of course, the market penetration is very high in the US, and they're probably going to start with a US dollar stable coin. So they have changed their approach. And that leads me to the next point. So we know they have a huge user base that's targeted, so that gives them a giant leg up against anyone else. Then the next thing that we have is that they've addressed the concerns that regulators and central banks had. So one of the concerns was, of course, monetary policy. And so Facebook is now going to launch individual single currency stablecoins. So in other words, they'll launch a currency that's tracked to the US dollar, is backed by a 1-to-1 reserve in US dollars, so they'll hold just as many dollars as they have their US dollar Diem. And then, on top of that, they're also going to follow a lot of the liquidity and stress test requirements for a financial institution, so that there's really not a lot of risk in the system for anyone that wants to convert their Diem back to their home currency. So they're working on that one. It's going to be the US dollar. The other ones they listed were the euro and the yen. These are, of course, the world's sort of most trusted currencies, and it stands to reason why these would be the first that they would launch with. Now, because it is a single currency coin, then, and is backed 1-to-1, then the central bank knows that it can still control the money supply. And so not only that, but Facebook is hoping to even more closely integrate with central banks in order to eliminate this onerous requirement that they have all these capital reserves, right? They don't really want to hold 1-to-1 plus dollars against the amount of stable coins that they issue. They'd like not to have to hold on to all that cash. And so what they're hoping to do is, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the US, the major banks basically have direct access to the Federal Reserve's ledger. And so there's a way to basically increase or reduce the amount of money that they have on the ledger just by the central bank doing it. And so you don't actually, it's just a lot smoother and a lot easier than the way that transactions that you and I would do is, right? It's all directly tied into the Federal Reserve. And so Facebook's hoping to be able to do that either directly or through some partner banks. And this would alleviate that capital requirement, but would also more closely integrate them with the central bank, which they will like. And they're also talking about working along with the central bank on any potential CBDC, which is a central bank digital currency. Because, of course, central banks are working to really modernize the system. And one of the ideas, really, is that the CBDC would give basically the entire banking system that direct access to the ledger. And so that way, you would have instantaneous remittances or payments or transfers of money between individuals and companies, which would be amazing. They do have to think about how that's going to affect legacy banks, though, because it would really change the way that the entire banking landscape works. So there's going to be a lot of pushback to any kind of move like that, and it'll be something we'll really want to be keeping an eye on moving forward. But anyway, that's the central bank piece settled for the Diem coin. Now, the other part is, of course, with regulators, things like financial crime, and really any kind of crime whatsoever, because crime often involves money, right? And so if you're able to follow the money, then you're also able to catch the criminal. So that's why we have know your counterparty measures in place, and that's why the Diem currency will not be permissionless. So you can't just sign up anonymously and transact anonymously. They'll have to know who you are in order to make sure that you're a good actor, right? And so I think this is probably a good thing. I know other people think differently, but I actually personally, as someone who's obeying the law, don't have any need to have completely anonymous transactions the way that Bitcoin is, right? So that's one point. Then the other part that's different about Diem versus Bitcoin is that it is still decentralized to some extent, because there are going to be nodes operated by all of the different partner companies, right, that are part of the association. Unlike where Bitcoin, basically anyone can offer up processing power to help update the ledger with their computer, then it's going to be done all by these sort of, trusted partners, right? Just like the way the current banking system is, I trust my bank to deal with my transactions accurately, right? And I trust that the money's going to be there when I need it, and it always has been, right? And then we have FDIC and all these protections. Anyway, so it's a very different model. But the nice thing about that is, since you have these, you have faith in the nodes and in the processing, then you don't need to incentivize individuals and any actors in order to provide computing power. So this whole Bitcoin mining thing is because you need an incentive for people to provide their computing power to help update the network and make everything run. And of course, it's very wasteful in the sense that you have to provide proof of work through doing these cryptographic puzzles, basically solving increasingly difficult cryptographic puzzles, and there's a ton of wasted energy and effort that goes into doing that, whereas we won't have that at all with Diem. They do have, of course, a lot of measures to ensure the security of the network, Byzantine fault tolerance they were talking about in the presentation, a lot of the more technical stuff that frankly I don't know all that much about, except that judging by their previous white paper and what I saw during this presentation today, I feel quite confident, of course, that there's going to be a ton of security in the system, and it's really not something to worry about. They've really thought this through very, very carefully. Okay, so we've addressed the central banks. We have addressed the regulators. We also have a much more efficient system because we don't have proof of work, but we still have very strong security. All right, and then we have a very large user base that we're going to target at launch. Now, the last thing, of course, is we need actual use cases, right? And so that's why they're partnering with Uber and Lyft. So you'll be able to pay for ride sharing using, of course, their platform. Or I don't know exactly how it's going to work. There's going to be a wallet. There's going to be maybe another app. Novi is going to do kind of the back-end. Wallet is the name of the company they've chosen to create. I don't really know exactly how all the details are going to go. We'll learn more as we get closer to launch. But you've also got Shopify, right? So there's going to be some real-life use cases that are going to be there right at launch, or very close to launch, I imagine. And as this thing takes off, then some of the more reticent companies, because you might remember that PayPal and Visa and MasterCard were partners of the original Libra before things went south. Again, because they didn't really think about regulators and central banks as well. So I think as things kind of get going and this thing really gets some traction, then those partners that have been more reticent will jump on, of course. I think they've already worked out some kind of a back-end solution for merchants, but I'm not really clear on what the details are. I just remember reading something about that, and I'll update you as I learn more and as we get closer to launch. But really my main point is this is the only cryptocurrency that I'm aware of that I think really has a lot of legs to become something that we actually use in our everyday lives. And you might also know that one of the things that really attracted me to the Libra cryptocurrency was the idea that this would be a global currency. Now, yes, that eliminates monetary policy capability for countries, That still leaves fiscal policy, though. That's something they can still engage in, and all kinds of other governmental policies, right? But what that would do is it would much more closely integrate everyone. And I think anything that integrates us more closely in terms of economy and trade is very likely to make it more difficult for us to want to engage in war. And so that's something I'm very much in favor of. That's the whole reason why the European Union was founded, and one of the reasons why the exit of the United Kingdom from the European Union was pretty sad to see, actually. So hopefully we'll have more closer integration. This kind of close integration also tends to create convergence, where the sort of lower income per capita countries will start to move towards the higher income per capita countries over time. And I think that's a wonderful thing as well. A lot of the, if you look at the Bill Gates reports, the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation reports every year, you'll see that, abject poverty has been really reduced over the last couple of decades, which has been amazing. A lot of the sort of health metrics, Gini coefficients have been improved for a lot of the world over the last couple of decades, and it's really heartening to see that, and anything that can promote more of that, I'm absolutely in favor of personally. So yeah, really excited about this cryptocurrency. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, many of you haven't, do please subscribe. Helps out the channel tremendously. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.